Radio Cairo. What's going on? It's life. And that's the road. Life on the road. Hello everybody over there and welcome to a new edition of Life on the Road, brought to you by the European service of Radio Cairo on FM 95.4. Today we are concerned with the journey of the Holy Family in Egypt. So we have an exclusive telephone interview with Associate Professor of Egyptology at the American University in Cairo, Dr. Mairam. Dr. Mairam, welcome to Radio Cairo and many thanks for joining us. The Ministry of Tourism has launched a trip retracing the footsteps of the journey of the Holy Family in Egypt. So we'd like to know a lot about that journey, please.
Mona, it's so good to be with you, and thanks for having me on your program. The Holy Family came to Egypt seeking refuge. At the time of their flight, there was a very bad situation in Jerusalem. The king wanted to kill all the young children under the age of 2. And according to scripture, an angel appeared to St. Joseph and instructed him to take his wife and the child and flee to Egypt to protect the child's life. Now, scripture does not tell us exactly how long they were in Egypt or the route that they took when they were here. But we know that he returned to Palestine maybe around the age of 6. So the journey is not a 2-week trip, but rather maybe a 3 or 4 year sojourn into the country. There's a lot of local tradition about the sites that they visited, and mostly these sites have had shrines or churches or monasteries sprout out around them. And they have been turned into holy places.
Well, Dr. Mairam, the proposed trip ranges from 5 to 7 days, during which tourists will follow the path of the Virgin Mary with the baby Jesus. So what are the main stops of the Holy Path?
The airport, if people are flying in, would be the tree of the Holy Mary tree in Matareya, near Heliopolis. And even as people drive out of the airport, there are road signs directing them to the tree in Matareya. By the way, this is a site that's become sacred to all the different people living in Egypt of different faiths. So there is a mosque right there near the tree of the Holy Family in Matareya called Masjid Maryam. So it's something that is not limited to the Coptic community in Egypt, but rather it's something that all Egyptians consider sacred. Another very famous and important spot is Jabal al-Tir near Al-Minya. And according to tradition, the Holy Family took shelter there. It's built on an elevated bit of the land near the Nile Valley, on the Nile Valley near the Nile. And it's a safe haven for migratory birds. And they're beautiful, and they flock to this spot near Al-Minya very frequently, and that's why the area is called Jabal al-Tir, which literally means the mountain of birds. And it is said that the Holy Family were enchanted by the beauty of that spot and decided to reside there for a while. It's not quite clear what the path was and whether they took a straight path from Palestine that went through El Arish and then the Eastern Delta and then further south, or whether they meandered. Judging by the number and the location of the different spots attributed to this journey, it would give the impression that it was a meandering path. There are very many sacred spots, especially in the area between Minya and Asyut, associated with that trip. By the way, I would like to recommend a book to you and to your listeners that traces that journey of the Holy Family. And in fact, it's a book about the churches of Egypt from the time of the Holy the journey of the Holy Family to Egypt to the present day. It has wonderful photographs. The book is authored by Gaudet Gabra and Gertrude van Loom, and edited by Carolyn Ludwig. So it's a mix of 3 different scholars from different backgrounds and different nationalities, and the photographs are by Sharif Sumbul. And it's a wonderful publication because it has maps at the beginning of each section, and on the map they show you the sites, and they start with the Delta and the Sinai, and then they move to the Cairo area, and then further south in a very systematic way. And it's a hefty volume. I mean, it's heavy, it's big, but it's also very well illustrated. And for anyone who's interested in that journey and in retracing the steps of the Holy Family, this would be a must-have. Regarding the ministry's initiative to facilitate transportation to these sites, I think this is a most welcome initiative. Some of the sites are not readily accessible by public transport, and often it's even hard to find a local driver who's familiar with the area. Definitely, if you were to hire a car from Cairo or Giza, it would be almost impossible for the drivers to know their way to all the spots. I mean, some spots are very famous and anyone can find their way to, but the idea of the long cruise from Cairo all the way to Minya, or just even from Minya to Luxor, is phenomenal because it provides accommodations for the tourists as well as guided tours of the sites. And then being on the Nile, people would have the luxury of stopping at every single site while enjoying the scenery at the same time. So definitely, I mean, facilitating access and increasing the number of trips that follow that route is a very welcome initiative, and I hope that they would implement it soon, and that they would announce and advertise the rates and where you can book it from, and make it available to a wide variety of tour companies. The other thing also that we ought not to forget is that around the area of Minya, there are a number of ancient Egyptian sites that are phenomenal, like the Amarna, which is the capital of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, is right there. There are tombs at Beni Hassan. The site of El-Birsha has yielded wonderful coffins, and many others around that area. So just facilitating transport to and around Minya would serve not only religious tourism and those interested in retracing the steps of the Holy Family, but moreover it would help Egyptologists and those interested in the history of Egypt in more ancient times access wonderful sites. Hermopolis, for instance, is there. So it's definitely very welcome.
I think there should be an advertising campaign for European and Asian markets to promote the new tour.
As I've read about the project, they should, and they are aiming it at religious communities. And these would mostly be either in Russia, because there's a lot of Orthodox Christians in Russia, or in Latin America and South America, because there's the majority there are Catholics, and they too would be interested in this journey. So I think the plan of the ministry, as I've read it in the media, in newspapers, seems quite logical, because these are the main markets that would be interested in this journey on a mass scale. Of course, you'll get specialists from all over the world from different backgrounds, but in terms of mass tourism, these are the 2 prime markets.
Okay, finally, any tips to our tourists and listeners before wrapping up our interview?
Definitely get a cruise on the Nile, whether the long cruise retracing the steps of the Holy Family or even the more readily available one from Luxor to Aswan. The Nile is one of the longest rivers in the world, and the vegetation around it is just so beautiful. Regardless of the monuments, just the fact that you're on that boat, on that river, is quite an experience. Of course, the monuments and the sites are also important. I'm an Egyptologist, so of course I find them interesting. But there's just so much natural beauty that your listeners should take advantage of, whether they live in Europe or North America or anywhere in Egypt. I think it's one of the underutilized aspects of tourism in Egypt, just the natural beauty of it.
Well, Dr. Mairam Ayed, Associate Professor of Egyptology at the American University in Cairo, many thanks for your time. that's it for today's edition of Life on the Road, brought to you by the European Service of Radio Cairo on FM 95.4. Life on the Road with Mona Hosni.